He found the shoebox hours before saying I do. Inside? Her betrayal, printed, dated, and dripping with lies. She called him sweet, easy, naive, but he didn't cancel the wedding. He walked her to the altar, then burned her world to the ground. And what happened next silenced the entire crowd. The morning of your wedding is supposed to feel surreal, like something out of a dream. You expect a blend of nerves and excitement, maybe even those jittery butterflies people talk about when you're standing on the edge of forever. I had gotten up early that day, still in the apartment Sabrina and I had made our own. Every detail in that place, from the shared furniture to her calming candles and her carefully curated color palette, was a reflection of us. Or so I thought. I brewed some coffee, leaned against the window, mug in hand, staring out at the city I'd always loved. I told myself this day would be flawless. Then my phone buzzed. One message. Don't go to your wedding. Check your fiancé's closet. It was from Ethan, my younger brother. The guy's known for pulling weird stunts, tossing out strange jokes, especially when things get tense. I actually chuckled when I read it, thinking it was his messed up way of easing pre-wedding nerves. A closet? Really? What could he possibly be talking about? I set the cup down and fired off a quick text. Seriously? Not today, man. But nothing came back. No smirking emoji. No punchline. Just silence. And that's when something inside me turned. The apartment was quiet. Sabrina had left before the sun came up, off with her bridesmaids to the bridal suite. She gave me a kiss on the cheek on her way out, whispering she couldn't wait to walk down the aisle. I still remembered how her perfume lingered in the hall long after she closed the door behind her. I looked back at Ethan's message, then over at the bedroom. Everything looked untouched. The pillows were in perfect order. The wedding itinerary she had printed out was still neatly placed on the dresser. Her blush-colored robe, the one she wore the night before, was draped gently over the chair. I wasn't even thinking. My legs just moved, slow and heavy, like I was wading through deep water. I walked to her closet and opened it. At first glance, nothing looked out of place. Dresses hung neatly, shoes arranged by color, scarves and purses tucked away in organizers. Everything was too perfect. My eyes dropped to the floor. That's when I saw it. A plain white shoebox shoved into the far corner. I pulled it out, lifted the lid, and the world stopped spinning. Photos. A pile of them. Glossy. Raw. Private. I didn't have to guess who the guy was. It was Derek, her ex. The one she swore was ancient history. Someone who didn't matter anymore. There they were, holding hands on some beach, toasting wine in a dimly lit restaurant. One photo showed him tucking her hair behind her ear as she laughed. My gut clenched. Then I found the one that hit like a punch to the chest. They were together. I dropped the box like it burned. But that wasn't all. Papers spilled out. I bent down, dazed, and picked up a few. Emails. Printed emails. Why would she even print them? I started reading the top one. Her words. He's so naive. Once I'm his wife, we'll be together. We'll take the house, the company, everything. Then I'll leave and he'll never know what hit him. I couldn't move. I think my hands were trembling, but I was too numb to feel them. My legs were dead weight. The walls felt like they were caving in. All I could see were those cold black words on that paper, and I could hear her voice in my head. Soft. Sweet. Deadly. This wasn't just cheating. It wasn't just lying. This was a setup. A full-blown scheme. Calculated. Surgical. And I was the mark. I stumbled away from the closet like it might detonate. My chest was tight. My breath came in short gasps. None of it felt real. I sank down on the edge of our bed, my bed now, I guess, surrounded by sunlight that suddenly felt too harsh, too fake. By this time, I should have been buttoning my tux. I should have been rereading my vows, maybe texting Ethan or Marcus or my dad, saying I was ready. I should have been picturing our first dance. The cake. That honeymoon we had booked in Greece. Instead, I was sitting there, fist full of betrayal, choking on humiliation. I picked up my phone and called Ethan. He picked up instantly. You saw it? He asked, low. Yeah, that was all I could manage. I was at a bar 2 nights ago, he said. Saw her. With Derek. They were laughing, drunk, talking like no one else existed. I couldn't believe it, man. I followed them out, took pictures, emailed them to myself. He paused. I knew you'd never believe it unless you saw it. I didn't speak. Couldn't. I didn't know how to tell you. But you had to know. I'm sorry. You saved me, I whispered. There's nothing to apologize for. I sat there, staring at the closet, at the pieces of her life that suddenly felt like they belonged to someone else. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I was just hollow. Then something shifted, like fog lifting off my brain. I stood up and walked to the window again. But this time, I wasn't just staring. I was processing, planning. I'd been hit hard, but I wasn't going to stay down. I wasn't going to play the victim. I grabbed my phone and started snapping pictures. Clear ones of the photos, the emails, the dates. I created a folder, encrypted it, uploaded a backup to the cloud. Then I went to the drawer where I kept her ring, stared at it for too long, then slammed it shut. I wasn't walking into that wedding clueless. I was walking in armed with the truth. The clock read 9:13 a.m., just over 5 hours to go. And I swear, time never dragged so slow. Every second was a weight pressing down on my shoulders. My phone buzzed again. I didn't check. I already knew it was probably her or someone from her camp. The planner. Her cousin. One of the groomsmen asking about cufflinks. I couldn't respond. Not yet. I was still trying to get air into my lungs. The living room was shrinking around me, the walls tightening, the truth pressing down like gravity. I stepped into the kitchen and ran the cold tap, splashing water on my face, hoping it would snap me back. But betrayal doesn't rinse off that easy. What do you do when the one person you trusted with everything, your heart, your future, was plotting behind your back the whole time? I built this life from the ground up. No handouts, no shortcuts. The house, the business, the car, every single thing I had, I earned. And now I knew what she was after. Everything I had, I fought for. Late nights, missed birthdays, endless hustle. Nothing was handed to me. And the woman I planned to marry, the one I believed was my ride or die, was ready to rip it all from me, smiling while doing it. All she needed was my signature at the altar. I walked back into the bedroom. That shoebox was still lying there, its contents dumped out like someone had thrown up secrets all over the floor. Those photos stared back at me like ghosts I didn't ask to see. I picked one up and flipped it over. A date was scribbled on the back. 2 months ago. 2 months ago, she was in bed with him, laughing. And just days later, she was crying in my arms, telling me she was terrified of how deeply she loved me. I sank down and picked up one of the letters, not an email this time, but a real handwritten letter. Her handwriting. Elegant. Familiar. Just like the love notes she used to give me when we started dating. But this wasn't love. It's happening. Just like we dreamed. He's eating out of my hand. He actually thinks I'm obsessed with him. Can you believe it? Just a little longer, baby. We'll walk away with more than rings. How's business? That was her tone. Casual. Like they were planning a vacation, not a takedown. I didn't realize I was grinding my teeth until my jaw started to ache. This wasn't just cheating. She was enjoying it. Laughing behind my back. I was the fool in the punchline she kept repeating. And the anger that rose in me wasn't loud, it was cold. Focused. Not rage that explodes, but the kind that sharpens your senses. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to break things. That's movie stuff. This was real life. My life. My name. My future. And she was ready to charge it all like some unlimited credit card. I didn't need to break down. I needed to think. To move. I stood up, walked out into the hallway, and grabbed my laptop. One by one, I logged into everything we shared: email, bank accounts, travel profiles. Even the wedding website she loved so much, with our photo-holding hands under fake fairy lights. Delete. 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 I scrubbed my name off every single piece of it. Then I logged into my business dashboard. My company. My sweat. My pride. Legally, she wasn't on anything. I made sure of that. She'd sat in on meetings now and then, offered input, smiled at clients. But I never added her name to the paperwork. Thank God. Because if I had, she would have walked away with everything. I locked it all down. New passwords. 2-factor codes. Biometric backups. I sealed every door she might try to sneak through. Then my phone buzzed. It was her. Baby, everything okay? Haven't heard from you. The photographer says they'll be at the venue by noon. Can you believe it's happening? That stupid smiley face nearly made me throw the phone across the room. I stared at the message like it was written in poison. How dare she act like everything was normal? Like the box of betrayal in my closet didn't exist. In my home. My life. I didn't text back. I got up, grabbed a duffel bag, and started packing. Not to run, but because I knew exactly what I needed to do next. I pulled together everything. The printed emails, the photos, the handwritten letters. Scanned them, labeled the files. I'm a builder by trade. Systems are what I know. My heartbreak flipped into mission mode. I laid the evidence out like a legal case. Because deep down, I knew this would end up in court. Then I called Ethan. He picked up quick. Yeah, I need your help. With what? I paused. I'm not calling off the wedding. What? I explained everything. Calm. Clear. I wanted to go. I wanted her to walk down the aisle. I wanted everyone to clap and cheer, and then I'd show them the truth. All of it. Ethan went quiet. You sure? Dead sure. All right, he said. What do you need from me? I gave him the rundown. Where to enter. When to hit play on the video. How to move without drawing attention. He didn't say a word until I finished. Then he sighed. This is going to be brutal. She made it that way. By the time we hung up, I was already dressed. Not in my tux. That felt like a costume now. I wore a simple, clean dark suit. No boutonniere. I wasn't the groom she thought she tricked. I was the reckoning she never saw coming. At 11:45 a.m., I left the apartment and locked the door behind me. I didn't know if I'd ever come back. It didn't feel like mine anymore. The car ride to the venue was quiet. I didn't play music. Didn't rehearse a speech. Just watched the city drift by. Buildings, people, smiles. All of them living their lives, unaware that one man in the back seat was heading straight toward the wreckage of his own wedding. By 12:30, I pulled up. The sun was blinding. Guests had started gathering. A few noticed me and waved. I smiled back like I was just another groom floating on cloud 9. Inside, I was stone. Still. Focused. A calm before something nobody saw coming. The white rose arch stood like a gateway. 2 flower girls were laughing, dropping petals like they were part of some fairy tale. They had no idea. The setup was stunning. I'll give Sabrina that. She had an eye. Rows of white chairs formed a perfect crescent. Bows tied with precision. The lake behind the altar glittered like a postcard. From a distance, it looked like a dream. But I knew better. Some guests waved and called out to me. I smiled. I shook hands. Someone slapped me on the back and asked, "You ready to be a husband, Caleb?" I said, "More than ever." Every word tasted like blood. I scanned the crowd. Her aunt from Phoenix. Her friend Jade. The one who always filtered her selfies and called me too serious. My father, proud in the second row. My mother, already dabbing at her eyes like it was the happiest day of our lives. They had come to witness a wedding. They didn't realize they were about to watch a truth bomb explode in real time. Ethan was already inside, setting the stage. He spotted me and gave a quick nod. Eyes locked, steady. Ethan was locked in. He knew the exact plan. The signal. The second it would all start. I knew it too. The moment the fuse would meet the flame. The groom's suite was empty when I stepped inside. Cool air, untouched. My tux hung neatly on a rack. A bottle of champagne waited on the table, but I didn't touch it. Didn't even sit. I just stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my cufflinks like it mattered, even though I hadn't put the jacket on yet. And I started thinking about how many times Sabrina told me she couldn't wait to build something big with me. Back on our third date, she was already asking questions about my company. I thought she was genuinely curious. Now I know better. She wasn't interested in building anything. She was scouting the vault. This empire? It wasn't meant to be ours. She planned to take it, piece by piece. Strip it. Flip it. Walk away smiling. I picked up the tux jacket. The tag was still inside from when I'd had it tailored weeks ago. I ran my fingers along the inner lining, stopping when I felt it. A small folded USB drive. Just one file on it. 6 minutes long. Her voice. Her texts. Photos. Emails. Audio clips. Laughing. Mocking. Lying. It was all ready to play. And in 45 minutes, every person who ever trusted her would see it. A knock came on the door. 5 minutes, chirped the planner outside. I didn't say a word. Just slipped the USB back into my pocket, buttoned the jacket, and opened the door. I walked out calm, unnervingly calm, like I was stepping into someone else's skin. The music had started. Soft violins. The kind that tugs on emotions, even if you barely know the couple. I stood at the altar next to the officiant. He smiled, unaware of what was coming. Behind him, the wind caught the sheer curtains on the gazebo. They lifted and danced like wings in slow motion. And then, the guest stood. There she was. Sabrina. She looked flawless, like she'd stepped out of a magazine spread. The white dress. Pearls. That perfectly placed hairpin. She smiled as she walked toward me. Eyes locked on mine like I was her world. If I hadn't seen the truth with my own eyes, I might have believed her. That's what made it worse, how real the lie looked. Her father walked proudly beside her. beaming like he was handing over gold. He leaned in, whispered, "Take care of her." I nodded. But inside I was stone. Done. Beyond patience. We turned to face the officiant. "Dearly beloved." His words blurred. Something about love. Honor. Forever. I barely registered any of it. Sabrina clutched my hand like it meant something. She even gave that perfectly timed squeeze, the one you give when the moment gets sweet and everyone's watching. I studied her. Not like a lover. Like a detective studying a con artist trying to pass off something stolen as priceless. Then came the moment. If anyone objects. I held my breath. Silence, of course. Why wouldn't there be? They were still asleep. Now the vows. Hers came first. Sabrina stepped forward. She held her custom-written card like it was sacred. "Caleb," she began, her voice trembling just enough to sound genuine. "I never believed in fate until I met you. You showed me what loyalty really is, what strength truly looks like. You give everything, your heart, your time, your dreams. And I promise, today and every day, to match your love with my own." The guests melted. Her mom dabbed at tears. The bridesmaids clutched their tissues, nodding along like it was the most beautiful thing they'd ever heard. She delivered it like a Broadway actress. Flawless timing. Controlled emotion. The performance of her life. Now it was my turn. I stepped forward, took a deep breath, but didn't pull out the vows I'd written. Instead, I said, "Before I say anything else, I want to share something. Something honest. Something real." The officiant blinked. Of course. I turned my head slightly, just enough to spot Ethan at the back near the speaker setup. One nod. That was all it took. The music stopped. Behind us, the screen that was supposed to display a slideshow of our engagement photos flickered to life. The first image hit hard. Sabrina and Derek, hand in hand on the beach. Gasps spread through the crowd. Her dad turned. Her mom leaned forward, confused. Sabrina went rigid beside me. Her hand slipped from mine. The next image, a hotel room. The two of them kissing. Now the murmurs swelled into whispers. Confusion turned to shock, then disgust. And then the video. Her voice filled the garden. "Once I'm his wife, we'll take what we need and be done. He's too sweet to ever suspect anything." People started standing. Some looked at me, trying to read my face. I didn't blink, didn't flinch, just watched, still and steady, like she had when she planned this whole thing behind my back. Sabrina turned to me, her face pale, shaking. "Caleb, what is this?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The truth spoke for itself. Silence followed the final clip. Not a word, not a sound, just the wind brushing through the garden, like even the trees were waiting. Her voice, those venomous, soft-spoken words, still echoed through the stillness. Then it all came crashing down. The smile she wore minutes ago? Gone. Her shoulders rose and fell with shallow breaths. Her eyes scanned the guests, begging for someone, anyone, to stand by her. But no one moved. Not her dad. Not her friends. Not even the bridesmaids, who now stared like they didn't recognize the woman in white. I took a single step back, slow and intentional. That's when the crowd started whispering louder. "What is this? Is that real? Oh my God." Sabrina tried to speak. Her lips moved, but nothing came out. She reached for me. Her fingertips brushed my sleeve. I pulled back. "You planned it," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. My voice calm, sharp. "You planned all of it. The marriage, my company, my entire life. You were going to take it all and walk away." "No," she gasped. "It's not what it looks like. Caleb, please, let me explain." I stared at her. Really looked. The expensive dress. The perfect lashes. The trembling lip. Every detail crafted to make her look like a dream bride. But all I saw was the performance unraveling. She was breaking, but not in the way she'd planned. "You want to explain?" I asked, steady and clear. "Explain the photos? The emails? The letters where you said you'd take the house, the company, then file for divorce like it was some kind of twisted game?" Her lips parted like she might say something, then shut again. "Nothing." That's when her father stood. "Sabrina," he said, his voice low and tight. "Is this true?" She didn't answer him either. Somewhere behind us, someone muttered a curse. A woman let out a sharp gasp. The screen behind us flickered again, a message with a timestamp from just 2 weeks ago. Her text to Derek. "He's transferring the deed next week. All I have to do is sign." Now guests were standing. Some were already walking away. One bridesmaid turned aside and doubled over, covering her mouth. You thought it was a joke? I said again. You printed love letters to your ex, hid them in the home we shared. Met him in secret. Bragged about how easy I was to fool. That's not just betrayal, that's a blueprint for destruction. Her mask shattered. She broke into sobs, messy, raw, ugly cries that filled the space between us. A year ago, that might have cracked something in me. Not today. Not after what I'd seen. Not after reading how she described me to him. Predictable. Soft. Easy to manage. She dropped to her knees. Caleb, please. I was wrong. I didn't go through with it. I swear. I changed. I chose you. No, I said quietly. You didn't choose me. You just didn't expect to get caught. The violins were long gone. No music. No whispers. No laughter. Even the officiant had backed away, quietly unclipping the mic from his collar. I turned to face the crowd. My apologies, I said, calm. I know many of you came here expecting a wedding. But I paused. This wasn't going to be a wedding. It was going to be a robbery. And I couldn't let that happen. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. The truth was loud enough. Some of you probably have questions, I added. And there'll be time for those. But for now, just know this. I won't be marrying Sabrina. Not today. Not ever. And with that, I stepped down from the altar. Sabrina sobbed harder behind me, but I didn't turn around. I didn't need to see her again. Ethan met me beyond the trees. I handed him the USB. Get this to my lawyer. He'll know what to do. He nodded. You sure you're okay? No, I said honestly. But I will be. Right then, my phone buzzed again. Derek, you made your move. Let's see if you can handle mine. I stared at the message for a second, then forwarded it to my attorney. Let him try something. I had every file backed up. Her access revoked. The locks changed. The paperwork already in motion. They came to take everything. They'd leave with nothing but humiliation. I circled the side of the garden to avoid the main path. I didn't want the pity stares. Didn't want anyone asking how I was holding up. I just needed to breathe. But as I passed one group, I caught a whisper. He handled it like a man. Another voice added, she fooled us all. I didn't react. I just kept walking. At the gate, the limo was still idling, ready to take us to the reception. The driver opened the door without thinking. There's been a change of plans, I said. He blinked. Should I take you to the hotel? I shook my head, pulling out my phone. No, I'm heading somewhere else. Right there, standing on the curb, I booked a flight. I didn't care where it was going. I just picked a quiet coastal town I'd always meant to visit, Belridge. Never been there. Didn't know a soul. That was exactly what I wanted. I needed out. Not just distance, I needed blank space. Guests had started to trickle out, their conversations filled with confusion, sympathy, and shock. Some looked over at me. A few gave respectful nods. Most looked away, unsure what to say. But Sabrina? She was still on her knees at the altar, surrounded by the ruins of the lie she built, dressed in a dream she'd weaponized, and now left with nothing. I didn't gloat. I didn't speak. I just walked toward the waiting car, each step lighter than the last. Because when your world collapses, you get one rare gift, the chance to build something new from the ashes. And I was already designing my rebuild. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Not my parents. Not my business partner. Not even Ethan. He had done more than enough. I owed him silence, not explanations. All I said was, I need air. I need space. Somewhere no one says my name or asks if I'm okay. Truth was, I didn't even know what okay looked like anymore. The ticket was one way. Belridge. Northern coast. Quiet. Unfamiliar. Perfect. I wanted clean air. Empty streets. Skies that didn't carry echoes of who I used to be. I needed a place where my name meant nothing to anyone. The flight felt like purgatory. I stared out the window, letting the clouds roll past, not really thinking or maybe thinking about everything all at once. My body was buckled into that seat, but part of me was still back at that altar, watching her cry, watching the lie collapse under its own weight. After landing, I picked up a rental car. It smelled faintly of seaweed and lemon wipes. The drive was long, almost 2 hours through winding forest roads and glimpses of ocean. That landscape looked untouched by heartbreak, like it had never seen betrayal. And for the first time in a long time, I breathed. The cottage I'd booked was small, old, beautiful in a quiet kind of way. White shutters, a leaning mailbox, a porch that creaked under your feet. I liked it instantly. There was a key under a flower pot and a note written in soft handwriting. Caleb, Hope you find peace here. Nina. Peace. A word I hadn't held in my hands for what felt like years. Not since the late-night fights disguised as conversations. Not since I started noticing how often Sabrina took calls outside, or wiped her browser like she was cleaning up her conscience. I stepped inside and dropped my bag. The air smelled like lavender and wood dust. I collapsed onto the couch without unpacking a thing. I didn't cry. Still hadn't. Not because I was holding it back, but because everything inside me had gone quiet. Numb. Like my emotions had become echoes, bouncing off the empty walls of an abandoned house. The first 3 days passed in absolute silence. I shut off my phone. Didn't check emails. Didn't touch the news. I woke up, walked the beach, ate whatever I could throw together, and went back to sleep. That was my whole routine. No noise, no people, just me and the weight of everything I'd walked away from. I found myself staring at the ocean for hours. There was something brutally honest about it. It never pretended to be gentle. The waves came, crashed, and pulled away. Over and over. No lies. No manipulation. The sea didn't whisper sweet promises before it drowned you. It just was. Unchanging. Unapologetic. On the 4th day, I sat on a weathered bench overlooking the cliffs. The wind was sharp but didn't feel cruel. For the first time since the wedding that wasn't, I held a notebook in my lap. A pen in my hand. I started writing. Not to her. Not a revenge letter. Just thoughts. Scattered fragments. Faded memories. I wrote about the first time I saw her. About the night we danced in the rain. About the moment I almost proposed too early, only to chicken out and slip the ring back into my pocket. I wrote about the warning signs I ignored, how she flinched when I brought up shared finances. How she insisted on a prenup but painted it as responsibility. How she always smiled when she was lying. Then I wrote about Ethan, how his message saved me. How he handed me a lifeline I didn't even know I needed. He gave me the key when I didn't even realize I was locked in a cage. I filled 5 pages before I stopped. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept a full 8 hours. No nightmares. No jolts. Just quiet, uninterrupted sleep. The next morning, I finally turned my phone back on. 137 missed calls. 84 texts. The first few were from Sabrina. The rest, her friends, her mom, a couple of distant relatives I hadn't heard from since college. Some were desperate. Please talk to her. Some were angry. You embarrassed her in front of everyone. And a few were borderline threats. She's going to sue you for defamation. I didn't reply to any of them, but one message stood out. Derek, you think you're clever? Think exposing her ruined us? You just started the fire. Be ready for what comes next. I read it once, then again, and on the 3rd read, I smiled for the first time since leaving, because that message told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't in control anymore. He thought I'd run, thought I'd cry and hide, but I wasn't broken. I was awake. I typed out 3 words, see you soon. Then I blocked him. Later that afternoon, I drove into the heart of Belridge, a quiet little town center. I bought a new phone with a fresh number, signed up at a local gym, walked into a bookstore and asked about job listings posted on the community board outside. The woman behind the counter raised an eyebrow. You're not from here, are you? No, I said, just starting over. She smiled kindly. We could use more of that. I left feeling lighter, like something invisible had finally been unhooked from my back. That night, wrapped in a blanket on the porch, tea in hand, I watched the stars. The world had tried to erase me. She had tried to rewrite me into a victim. But I wasn't a footnote in her story. I was writing a new one, and this time, no one else held the pen. I used to think silence was something you endured, something you filled with music, noise, and distraction. But that was before Belridge, before the truth shattered everything, before the mask dropped. Now, silence felt different. It was full, dense, like standing alone in a forest after a snowfall. Still, but not empty. Quiet, but not dead. Each morning I woke up to birds instead of buzzing alerts. No alarms. No meetings. I brewed black coffee in a chipped mug and sat on the porch, watching sunlight bleed through the trees. It was a rhythm I didn't realize I needed. No one wanted anything from me here. No one was smiling with a knife behind their back. Just time. And for once, it was mine. I started fixing the cottage, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. The back steps were warped, so I replaced the boards. The porch light had water damage. I rewired it, sealed it, and added a brighter bulb. There was something healing about it, using my hands again, not to sign deals or send emails, but to build something real. Back in the city, my hands were always busy: contracts, handshakes, spreadsheets. Here, they were covered in dust and splinters, wrapped around screwdrivers and rusted nails. It felt right. One afternoon, while sanding down a crooked cabinet door, I caught myself humming. I stopped mid-note, surprised. It wasn't out of anger or grief, just a melody that slipped out on its own. That night, I lit a fire in the small brick pit out back. The stars over Bell Ridge were clearer than anything I'd seen back home. I watched the flames dance and thought about everything I'd nearly lost. Not the money, not the house. That stuff can be rebuilt. I mean me. If I hadn't opened that closet, if Ethan hadn't spoken up, I would have married someone who could look me in the eye and lie without blinking. Sometimes that thought still hit me like a wave, how close I came to building a future on rotten ground. Then, one morning, about 3 weeks in, my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, I'd let it go, but something told me to pick up. Hello. A pause. Caleb? It's me. Sabrina. My hand tightened around the phone. I didn't feel panicked. No cold sweat. Just a sharp tension stretching across my shoulders. What do you want? I asked, voice steady. I need to talk. Please. Just a few minutes. I didn't know where you went. I didn't know if you were okay. I was scared. Scared. I almost laughed. That's rich coming from you. I deserve that, she said quickly. I do. I'm not calling to excuse anything. I'm not. I've lost everything, Caleb. Everyone turned their back on me. She took a shaky breath. My parents won't speak to me. I'm getting threats online. I don't even know if I can show my face in the city again. I let the silence do the heavy lifting. I knew she couldn't sit in it. She filled it like I expected. I made a mistake, she whispered. I thought I could have both, the comfort of what you gave me and the thrill of something else. I was stupid, she said, voice shaky. But I never meant to hurt you. I swear to God. Stop. I cut her off. Don't use that voice. Don't cry. Don't turn this into another act. She went quiet. I'm not that guy anymore, I said. I'm not the version of myself that needed your validation or mistook your manipulation for love. That man, he's gone. You buried him the moment you left those pictures in my closet. She inhaled sharply. I could hear the catch in her throat. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she whispered. I needed to hear your voice. I paused, then replied coldly, you don't get that anymore. And I ended the call. No drama. No final monologue. Just a click, and it was over. What came after wasn't the silence that follows betrayal. It was a cleaner kind. Final. Peaceful. The kind that comes when something finally ends, and you no longer have to carry it. Later that day, I drove into town and applied for a part-time job at the hardware store. The owner, a tall woman with silver hair and a name tag that read, Donna, interviewed me on the spot. You ever work retail? She asked, eyebrow raised. No, I said. But I've built homes, run a company, designed office spaces. I know my way around tools and I know how to talk to people. She tilted her head. So why here? Because I need to be somewhere where no one expects anything from me, I answered. Except that I show up and do the work. She studied me for a second, then nodded. Can you lift a 40-pound bag of concrete? I grinned. Try me. She hired me that afternoon. It wasn't fancy. It didn't pay much. But it was honest. And that made all the difference. Each shift felt like therapy, slow, grounding, real. Little by little, I started blending into Bell Ridge. The barista at the corner cafe remembered my coffee order. The guy at the bait shop waved every morning. Nobody asked about my past. Nobody cared where I came from. They just let me exist. One evening, as we locked up shop, Donna looked at me and said, You look different than the day you walked in. How's that? I asked. She wiped her hands on a rag. You look less like you're running. More like you've arrived. That night, I walked barefoot along the shore. The tide was cold on my feet, the wind sharp on my skin, but I felt something I hadn't in a long time: stillness. I wasn't healed. Not fully. Some wounds don't close overnight. But I wasn't unraveling anymore. The noise in my head was gone. No racing thoughts. No rehearsed lies. Just breath. Just quiet. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't a man trying to glue the pieces back together. I was a man building something new. There's something surreal about watching yourself come back to life. It doesn't happen with fanfare or flashing signs. It sneaks up on you. It's a glance in the mirror where your eyes aren't hollow anymore. It's a laugh you didn't expect. It's a fleeting moment when you think, maybe I'll be okay. One foggy morning, I stepped out of the shower and stood in front of the steamed-up mirror. Towel around my waist, the scent of soap still on my skin. I wiped the mirror clean with my palm and froze. I didn't recognize the guy looking back. Not because he looked unfamiliar, but because he looked real. Gone was the polished groom-to-be. Gone was the smooth-talking businessman chasing perfection. That version had been shattered. The man in the mirror had stubble on his chin, tired eyes, and something new in his stare: resilience, quiet strength, truth. It felt like I was looking at a ghost, not hers, mine. The part of me that once believed love alone could protect you, that if you gave enough, sacrificed enough, meant enough, you could hold on to someone forever. But that wasn't true. I hadn't lost her. I'd lost the version of myself that existed with her. And somehow, that was the harder loss to accept. After getting dressed, I made my usual coffee, black, no cream, and stepped out onto the porch. The wind rolled gently through the trees like a tide, and I wrapped my hands around the warm mug, letting the heat ground me. Then my phone buzzed from inside. I almost ignored it, but something told me to check. The name on the screen stopped me. Marcus, an old friend, business partner, one of the first people I called when I signed the lease on my first office space. Solid guy, sharp with numbers, sharper with people. If Ethan was the brother who saved my heart, Marcus was the one who had always watched my back. I answered. "Caleb," he said, like he'd been waiting to say it. "Wasn't sure you'd pick up." "It's good to hear your voice," I said, and I meant it. "I heard what happened," he said. "Well, I saw the video. The fallout. You humiliated her, but you brought receipts." "I didn't do it to hurt her," I said. "I did it to stop her." "I know," he replied. "That's why I'm calling. You might want to sit down for this." I stepped back inside, sat at the kitchen table. "She tried to sue you." I didn't flinch. Of course she did. Claimed emotional distress, breach of privacy, intentional infliction of whatever she could Google. Your lawyer crushed it. Judge tossed the whole thing before lunchtime. I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. "But there's more," Marcus said. "Derek's not done. He's circling around, legally, publicly. Blog posts, videos, trying to stir things up. Looks like he's building a narrative." "Let him," I said flatly. Marcus paused. "You're not worried?" "I was almost married to someone who called me a stepping stone in writing," I said. "If someone wants to throw mud now, let them. I've got nothing to hide." "All right," he said slowly. "But that's not the only reason I called." I waited. "I've got a new venture. Real estate meets tech. And I want you in." I blinked. "Why me?" "Because no one builds like you do. And because you're the only guy I know who walked through hell and came back with a blueprint." I didn't answer right away. I looked out the window, past the mist curling through the trees. Something shifted in my chest. "I don't know if I'm ready," I said. "Maybe not," he replied. "But when you are, the offer stands. Just say the word." We hung up a few minutes later, and I just sat there, tapping the side of my mug, letting the idea settle in my chest like fresh paint drying on a new wall. A new beginning, this time on my terms. That afternoon, I took a walk into town. I passed the bookstore, nodded to Donna outside the hardware store, and ended up standing in front of an old barber shop. The paint on the sign was cracked. The red and white pole still spun in lazy, tired circles. I stepped in without thinking. The place smelled like talcum powder and old wood. A man in his 60s sat behind the counter, flipping through a newspaper. He glanced up. "Cut, or just passing through?" I dropped into the chair. "A little of both." He chuckled. "You're the new guy, right? Quiet. Eyes like you've seen ghosts." "Guess that's me," I said, as he began trimming away the overgrown parts of my hair. He talked as he worked about fishing, local elections, the high school football team. Nothing important. And somehow, that meant everything. No questions. No digging. No curiosity about weddings or scandals. Just a guy cutting another guy's hair. When I stepped outside, I looked different. Sharper. Lighter. I hadn't realized how much weight I was still carrying in my reflection until I finally let some of it go. That night, I stood in front of the mirror again. This time, I didn't look away. It had been over a month since I vanished. Since I unplugged from the world I used to know. Bell Ridge was easing into fall, the wind cooler, the trees rusting into oranges and reds. Smoke curled from chimneys. Stores set out rustic displays like time itself was trying to soften the edges of everything. And quietly, without fanfare, I was changing with it. But then the past showed up. It was a Wednesday. Quiet. Like every other day in this town. I just finished my shift and stopped at the bakery for a warm loaf of bread. I liked how simple life was here, clean exchanges, familiar faces, no games. The sun was low when I pulled up to the cottage. I was locking my car when I saw her. Sabrina. She was standing by the porch. No white dress. No carefully painted smile. No designer jewelry to distract from the damage. Just a dark sweater. Jeans. Eyes swollen from crying. I froze. The wind stopped. The leaves went silent. All I could hear was the crinkle of the paper bag in my grip. "What are you doing here?" I asked. My voice was flat. Not cruel. Just steady. She took a slow step forward. I didn't move. "I didn't know where else to go," she said. Her voice sounded frayed, like she'd rehearsed this 100 times and still couldn't find the right version. I walked up the porch steps, slowly. "That's strange," I said. "You always used to have all the answers." She swallowed hard. "I know I don't deserve this. I know I shouldn't be here. But I'm not here to ask for anything. Not money. Not forgiveness. Not a second chance." I crossed my arms. "Then why?" I needed you to hear the truth. From me. Not through attorneys or messages. Just me." I leaned against the railing. I didn't say anything. She took that as a sign to go on. "I know what I did," she said, voice low. "I know it was sick. Selfish. Cruel. At first, it started as a joke. Derek said I was wasting my life settling down. Said you were too sweet. Too safe. That I could use that. And somewhere along the way, I let that idea in. And it grew. I didn't interrupt. I wanted what you gave me: security, loyalty, peace. But I also wanted something wild. Dangerous. I convinced myself I could have both without anyone getting hurt. You didn't just hurt someone," I said. "You tried to rewrite my life. You looked me in the eye, made promises, and planned an escape while wearing my ring. You wanted the benefits of loving me, but none of the responsibility." She flinched like I'd struck her. "You don't know what that's like," I continued. "To open a closet and find your entire future sitting in a shoebox. To hear the woman you love call you easy to control. And mean it." She covered her mouth with trembling fingers, tears brimming in her eyes. "You don't know what it takes to stand at an altar," I said, "and fake it for 5 minutes longer, just long enough to expose the truth. You don't know the weight of silence when every part of you is screaming." Her knees buckled. She sank onto the steps, hugging herself. "I've lost everything," she whispered. "My job, my reputation, my family. Derek left me 2 days after it all blew up. Said I was bad PR. Said I wasn't worth the fallout." I raised an eyebrow. "Yet you were ready to throw your entire life away for him." "I was stupid," she muttered. "No," I said. "You were selfish. You thought my love made you untouchable. That I'd never catch on." She wiped at her face, smeared with tears. "I came here because I needed you to know I'm not her anymore." I sat on the far end of the porch. A good 5 feet between us. "I don't hate you," I said quietly. That made her look up. "You don't?" "I did." I nodded. "For a while. But hate burns too hot. It takes energy. And I'm using mine to rebuild what you tried to erase." She nodded slowly, understanding settling in. "I don't expect forgiveness. I know I don't deserve." "Good," I cut in. "Because I'm not offering it." I didn't say it to wound her. I said it because it was the truth. And she knew it. "I don't love you," I added, softer now. "Not anymore." But I did. And part of me always will, not for who you were, but for who I thought you were. That shattered her. The tears came fast and hard. She pulled her knees to her chest and sobbed into her sleeves. I let her cry. I didn't go to her. I wasn't her protector anymore. When the sobbing slowed, she asked, "Do you want me to leave?" "You already know the answer." She stood shakily. "Thank you," she said, voice breaking, "for listening, even when I didn't deserve it." She walked down the steps, her figure shrinking in the fading light. I didn't watch her go. I stepped back inside, placed the bread on the counter, and lit a fire in the hearth. No rage. No victory. Just quiet. And the warmth of something real finally starting to return. The room glowed softly, the fire casting warm shadows along the walls. I sat on the couch, holding something I hadn't felt in a long, long time: closure. The past didn't kick the door down. It showed up, said its piece, and walked away. And I didn't fall apart. The morning after Sabrina left Bell Ridge, something inside me shifted. Not dramatically. There was no triumphant music, no fist in the air, no teary monologue claiming I'd been reborn. No, it wasn't loud at all. It was subtle, like waking up from a long fever and realizing, for the first time, you aren't sick anymore. I stood by the window, watching the mist roll through the trees like it always did. But I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel broken or bitter. I just felt still. For the first time in months, I was standing in my own skin, not trying to crawl out of it, not weighed down by guilt that was never mine to carry. I put the kettle on, watched it hum as it heated. When it whistled, it didn't sound sharp. It sounded soft, like everything in this town had learned to be gentle. I poured the water, stirred my coffee slow, and walked out to the porch, the one I'd rebuilt with my own hands. It wasn't just wood and nails anymore. It was proof that I could still create something honest, that I wasn't just surviving, I was rebuilding. I thought about what I'd said to her, that last thing. I don't love you anymore. But I did. And it was true. No venom in it. No performance. Just truth. And truth, when it's finally clean, always brings a kind of peace. A few days later, Donna asked if I could help redesign the back storage area at the shop. Said the shelves were awkward, too tall, no real flow. I offered to sketch something up. She raised a brow. You some kind of architect? Something like that, I said. That evening, I pulled out a sketch pad I hadn't touched since I left the city. It had a film of dust over it, like it had been asleep, waiting on me. I opened it carefully. The pages felt heavier than I remembered. And then, on a blank one, I started drawing. Not high-rise offices. Not slick investor showrooms. No logos. No buzzwords. I started sketching a space for healing, something with light, openness, balance. Wood and glass. Curves where edges used to be. A retreat. A place that felt like Belridge had felt to me. A place people could walk into and remember who they were. I got lost in the drawing. When I looked up, the sky had gone indigo, stars scattered like whispers. I closed the book gently and realized something that caught me by surprise. I knew what I wanted to do next. I didn't want to go back to who I was. That man? He built skyscrapers and ignored the cracks beneath them. He poured everything he had into a love that didn't exist. He thought success meant being chosen. I wanted to build something else now. Something real. The next morning, I emailed Marcus. Told him I wasn't ready to rejoin the business world, not the way I left it. But I wanted to design again. This time for places that mattered. Homes. Shelters. Retreat centers. Structures that healed, not just impressed. He wrote back the same day. Whatever you need, Caleb. I'll back it. No questions. That message hit me hard. Quiet, but deep. Because it wasn't about money. It was about belief. Later that week, I found a small piece of land just outside town. Nothing fancy. A gentle slope, circled by pine, the air thick with earth and promise. The for sale sign had seen better days. I called the number, met the owner, and signed by Friday. It wasn't just property. It was possibility. And the idea landed like a leaf on water, soft, but unstoppable. I'd build a wellness retreat. Simple cabins. Communal areas. Gardens. Trails. A place for people who'd been broken open by life and didn't know where to go. Not a hotel. Not a clinic. A sanctuary. I called it Stillhouse. Because sometimes healing isn't movement, it's stillness. The blueprint came to life fast. I covered the cottage table in sketches. Page after page. Late nights spent tweaking angles, light directions, entryways. Like I was carving a new version of myself into the walls. Donna offered to help spread the word. So did the baker. The woman at the bookstore. Even the quiet fisherman who lived up on the hill. In Bell Ridge, people didn't ask what you used to be. They cared about who you were becoming. Marcus wired the seed money within 48 hours. And I started clearing the land myself. Hammer in hand. Sweat on my back. Each board I nailed down felt like laying a brick in the foundation of a second chance. Then one morning, something happened I didn't expect. I laughed. Loud. Like really laughed. I was trying to fit a crooked window panel, grumbling under my breath, when the whole thing popped out and smacked me dead in the chest. I fell backward into a pile of insulation foam. And I just lost it. Not in frustration, but joy. There I was, hand on my chest, back in the dirt, laughing like an idiot alone in a frame I'd built myself. And I thought, this is what healing looks like. Not speeches. Not revenge. Not some cinematic ending. Just a moment when your soul taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, I'm still here. That night, I sat on the porch again. Stars overhead. Sketchpad beside me. I wasn't waiting for anyone. I wasn't afraid someone would return. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything. I just was. Caleb. The man who didn't break. The man who built peace from the ashes. It had been almost 6 months since I disappeared from the city. Since I stood at an altar, smiling through the knowledge of betrayal. Since I watched the woman I once loved fall apart in front of the very crowd she thought she could fool. Since I walked away without a clear destination, just the decision to walk. Now, as I stood at the edge of the clearing, morning sun rising through the trees like a quiet drumbeat, I knew exactly who I'd walked toward. Me. Stillhouse was taking shape. 3 cabins already framed. The communal hall halfway done. Lumber stacked where benches would go. Garden beds mapped in chalk. Trails outlined on tree trunks. It wasn't perfect, but it didn't have to be. The people in town didn't call me the new guy anymore. Now, they just called me Caleb. People started driving by the site just to wave. Some honked. Others left bags of nails, fresh muffins, or paint swatches on the porch. Belridge didn't ask me what I'd done before. Didn't care what I'd lost or why I'd run. It only cared about one thing, who I wanted to become. And that changed everything. Marcus came out for a weekend visit. He pulled up in a rented sedan, stepped into the mud in spotless loafers, and laughed. Man, you really traded glass towers for mud and lumber. I smiled. Welcome to Belridge. He looked around the site like he was seeing a holy place. This is different, he said. But it suits you. I handed him a coffee and nodded toward the lake. I'm not the guy you used to work with. No, he said after a sip. You're better. We talked business later. It felt easy. No pressure. No contracts. Just ideas, drawn out with pencils on the porch, steam curling from ceramic mugs. He agreed to help bring in a few quiet sponsors. Nothing with flashing lights or logos, just enough to get Stillhouse off the ground. Before he left, he paused at the car. You think you'll ever come back to the city? I shook my head. I already came home. He smiled. Next time, I'm packing boots. After he drove off, I climbed the hill and sat overlooking the frame of the main hall. The way the sunlight touched it made me pause. I imagined people inside one day. People who'd been broken, bruised, bent, but not destroyed. People just like me. Sitting in quiet. Healing without even realizing they were doing it. I wasn't just building a retreat. I was building redemption. The past had tried to reduce me to a punchline. A footnote in someone else's story. But I rewrote it, with nails and lumber and silence. And then, one quiet Sunday, while planting lavender by the trail, I noticed someone new. Not Sabrina. She wore a gray hoodie, worn jeans, and carried a book. Mid-30s, maybe. Her hair was tied back in a messy braid. She stopped at the hand-carved sign I'd placed at the entrance. Stillhouse, a place to begin again. I stood, brushing soil off my palms. Can I help you? She offered a cautious smile. Sorry, I saw the sign. I wasn't sure. Is this a clinic? Not quite, I said. It's a retreat. Quiet place for people working through things. She nodded slowly. That sounds like something the world could use. That's the goal. She reached out her hand. I'm Lila. Caleb, I said, shaking hers. She glanced past me at the cabins, the tools, the sawdust and sketches. Looks like you've been busy. You could say that. She hesitated. If you ever need help with the garden. I'm decent with a shovel. I smiled. Well then, Lila, grab a pair of gloves. She showed up the next morning. Brought gloves. And lemon muffins. Over time, she just became part of it. She didn't pry. Didn't dig. Just showed up, steady and kind. She helped me line stones, plant herbs, paint siding. And we talked. Not surface talk, real talk. Grief. Starting over. Loss without closure. One evening, under the string lights I'd hung between pine trees, we sat by the fire pit. The flames crackled as Lila said softly, You talk about the man you used to be like he died. I looked into the fire. Maybe he did. She tilted her head. I don't think he died. I think he evolved. And maybe, she was right. Maybe I didn't lose myself after all. Maybe I just peeled away everything that wasn't me. Later that night, I opened the drawer beside my bed. Pulled out the one thing I hadn't let go of. That email. Once I'm his wife, we'll take what we can and leave. I didn't read it again. I didn't need to. I stepped outside, tossed it into the fire. Watched it curl, blacken, and vanish. With it went the last thread tying me to the man who thought love meant losing yourself. When the flames faded, I looked up at the stars and whispered into the night. I came back. Not to the city. Not to her. Not even to the company. But to me. Caleb. The man they underestimated. The man who wasn't erased. Stillhouse would open in the spring. And when it did, people would come. Wounded. Weary. Searching for something they couldn't name. And I'd be here. Not as a victim. Not as a warning. But as the man who walked through fire, and built peace from the ashes.